Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Solutionaries here on Regenerative Media TV, now on YouTube and Vimeo, and soon going to other platforms, including Roku and Apple TV. So I decided to do this interview today outside. It's a beautiful sunny day here in southern Colorado in Crestone, where I live, and we're working on some projects with Earthstock Enterprises. But more importantly, I have the honor to talk a little bit with our next solutionary and guest about the work that he's doing. And what's amazing is, we met briefly recently, and we did our Earth Day broadcast. And in a busy world, we all get busy, but we have the benefit now of having more than a little 5 or 10 minute micro time with him to learn more about the amazing projects that he's doing. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Erik Gillberg from Now City.
Awesome. Michael, it's really a pleasure to see you again and be here with your audience talking about what we clearly have in common, which is a passion around regenerative solutions. For us, I'm Erik Gillberg, the CEO of Now City. We are a technology-driven and human-centric design-driven real estate company. Our mission is to accelerate the transition to regenerative, resilient, equitable communities and cities. I have a background in property management and systems design. I then spent 10 or 15 years doing technology development and startups. Mostly when I lived in Santa Cruz. I'm now in Los Angeles, and I have built a team of very sophisticated real estate development practitioners and design experts, and we've created a network of industry luminary engineers, architects, designers, finance experts. And what we're doing is looking for opportunities to develop communities at the district scale and leverage all of the amazing technology and solutions that we see in our Instagram feeds or hear about on the news. Where those really come together the best is at the community scale, which means between 1,000 and 10,000 people. So we're not talking about off the grid communities in the jungle somewhere. We're talking about urbanization, but urbanization done with sensitivity to ecology, sensitivity to what humans need to thrive, and just trying to displace as much destructive, non-healthy development as we can with our efforts. So that means we're actually doing real estate development, identifying properties, coming in with capital and alternative approaches to doing real estate development at scale with mixed use multifamily buildings and community energy projects, including we're huge fans of agrihood thinking and how to incorporate urban agriculture and circular systems thinking in those communities. And then we also, outside of our pure development efforts, we want to bring these services to a marketplace that needs them and help other landholders or municipalities do regenerative development at scale with the solutions that we're bringing to market.
Amazing. And I just want to acknowledge you. I like, go big or go home. I meet hundreds of people that are all trying to do eco villages and small self-sustainable communities. And that took me on a short tour of Costa Rica for about a month and a half, where there's over 300 eco villages there. And then with my communication with some people there in government, we came to the realization that Pura Vida ain't so Pura, because the problem is, even though there's these, like you said, very remote kind of jungle getaway eco villages, a lot of times there's no real economic development for the region there. And a lot of times it's kind of disconnected from the rest of the country or the culture. But also in Costa Rica, it's disconnected from a lot of the issues they have there around agriculture and economic development. So I'm really glad to hear what you're doing, and I kind of feel like, we were connected through Professor Tratner and Green to Gold. And I'm really excited because some big projects seem to be coming online. And, it really takes big thinkers, not with just innovation and ideas, but with the engineers, the team, the surveyors, and of course, with a background in real estate and land development. This whole concept of regenerative land development is huge right now. So I'm personally inspired and excited about what you're bringing to the table. And but we weren't going to get into that today so much, but we wanted to talk about um, and see a little bit. I think maybe you might give us a little tour of the website. I love some of the diagrams and some of the images that you're using. To me, it actually spoke 1,000 words without even having the time to thoroughly go through the entire verbiage on the website. But for those who are interested, can you tell us a little bit? I will say right now, the word regenerative is, um, it's a concept that kind of came out of the sustainability movement. But I think many of us realize we can't just try to be sustainable anymore. That we have to regenerate. I myself with Earthstock, I'm into full spectrum regenerative solutions. So it includes ecology, it includes technology, it includes economics, it includes agriculture, food and water, sometimes remediation, design, natural building, and that's kind of morphed into what we're doing with Regen Global. But the key of what makes that work is people like yourself who really have the solutions and the dream team of people to implement. Although I do find, now everything is packaged as regenerative, regenerative education, regenerative. So for you, and I know it's kind of baked into your formula, why is what you're doing regenerative, and what are some of your innovative and unique approaches to how you look at things again like infrastructure and urban regeneration and redevelopment, ecological design, et cetera?
That's a great question and good distinction. The my introduction to the word regenerative was from a TED talk by Finian Makepeace from Kiss the Ground, who was the first person to help me understand that sustaining a destructive, you know, process that we're in now isn't desirable. It's already sort of going down, and we need to create new processes that actually improve conditions instead of sustaining conditions that are not ultimately long-term beneficial to people and ecosystems. So for me, regenerative is now a catch-all for whatever we can do in the built environment and in our communities that has a net benefit to humans and the ecosystems that we depend on. So all decisions that we make just need to go through that kind of filter. And when we decide that a solution or a decision is right, it has to measure up to some level of making things better, not just minimizing destruction. So the easy place, the first consultant teammate I hired at the beginning of this, I was already thinking of large scale development, district scale development, because of being inspired by Buckminster Fuller and Paolo Soleri, who were the original sort of sustainable urbanists, in my opinion. And and those guys understood that we're, like Bucky said, spaceship Earth is how we have to think about this. It's a finite system with finite resources. We have to manage those well.
And I love what you're saying, not to interrupt, because part of Bucky's thing, and actually on Earth Day we had Christopher Zeloff. He did a film about Buckminster Fuller years ago called Ecological Design in a book, and he's kind of having a resurgent. It's tough when you're a little bit ahead of the curve, but like Bucky said, it's hard to cure the problems of a system and try to fight against these problems. He goes, sometimes you just have to go out and redesign and engineer a new system. So I know sometimes in this process of regeneration, things do kind of have to degenerate or collapse a little bit and become an old paradigm so that people are motivated, maybe both economically, culturally, socially, et cetera, to look at the idea of new designs. And really, I mean, you're in the Los Angeles area, and of course that area, we you suffered hugely from the the Eaton fire and the Pacific Palisades fire. So again, you obviously have your finger on the pulse. So amazing work, and you're aggregating the dream team. I look forward to maybe meeting you when I'm down there for 5 days, starting next week. But do you want to give us a little tour just for those, maybe we're using some words that they're not quite familiar with? Maybe you
Sure.
can share some of the website and some of your amazing images. I think it really illustrates brilliantly what the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Let me just finish that thought that the first person I hired was a farm designer. And knowing that we were going to get into large scale urban development and tall buildings and all that stuff, it felt like the most important thing to me was to establish some kind of beachhead around nature and agriculture. Because if you don't incorporate that from the beginning, you don't end up with a regenerative or sustainable solution. So that's really where it began, and that young designer named Wyatt Ball, who really helped me understand what regeneration meant from his point of view, which is coming from a permaculture background. That was super helpful. So give me 1 second. It's not what I meant to do. So I just want to set people's context a little bit for what urbanism means to us. It does mean that we're going to gather people into a little denser situation to create walkability and proximity to things that we need that are closer by, so we don't have to depend on cars and transportation for most of our needs. So that's a little hard for people who really value a deep connection to nature and being, having space and peace around them. But what we really need to do is try to figure out how to bring space and peace into our urban environments. And we can do that by sort of making sure that the noisy machines are at a perimeter. Then we have some really difficult challenges around local economy and vibrancy that emerge when we get rid of cars. So we're very sensitive to that. We have very talented urban designers and thinkers and to help us solve that. But really, what the question we're trying to answer with Now City is, what would it take to profitably address our housing and resilience challenges at scale with net benefit for people and ecosystems? And we say profitably very pointedly because we cannot build anything new without really understanding how to finance projects, and they have to be profitable. What we can do is not have profit at the expense of people and planet. So triple bottom line thinking is really where we live. And our vision, we feel like this is what the future looks like in California. In a vision like this, there's native, plantings. Everybody has to be very sensitive about, what native uh what native ecosystems are, how they function, and how can we support them as humans. Usually we just sort of mow over everything and destroy the conditions that would enable local ecosystems to thrive. We can design the other way around. So this is a little bit of what you're asking for, that when we think about neighborhoods and communities, we don't think mechanistically about them. It's not like we're trying to build a machine. We are trying to build a system. We're trying to think with a systems mindset, but in the sense that an ecosystem works. Ecosystems are very complex, very interdependent and interrelated. And we just need to deepen our understanding about how that kind of system functions in nature. So I know that your audience is familiar with biomimicry and looking to nature for the solutions. And we can do that at the, architectural and urban design and large system thinking. And that's sort of what we exist to do.
And I will say, over the last few years, we've put a lot of effort into educating people about bioregionalism, also the concept of watersheds, which with the indigenous people that I work with, they call it river basins. So there is this natural design and architecture, like you said, to nature itself, of how water flows, how things move, and it's great that you're making that a foundational part of this development.
And it's what hasn't happened I don't think yet well anywhere in the world is applying that thinking to large scale urbanism. It seems like urbanism is just intrinsically at odds with that thinking, but it doesn't have to be. We just haven't had enough clarity or understanding until this time in human history about how ecosystems work to try to do urbanism that's balanced with natural systems. So again, with like I think this is kind of what you were wanting to see is that we have some fundamental design principles and some levers that we think we can pull to imagine that. I guess another thing that's unique about Now City is we believe strongly that attempts to build entire cities at one go have generally failed because that also is not how nature does things. Nature evolves incrementally. Neighborhoods and communities have tended to evolve incrementally, the ones that last the longest and are the most productive and vibrant and successful. And so at the same time, when you just do it piece by piece, building by building, you lose the ability to design efficiencies and complete communities. Complete communities can be defined as uh, diverse peoples in that community, but it goes way deeper than that when you think about a complete community incorporating nature and economic opportunity and all of those things. So that's what I encourage people to think about when they look at this kind of illustration that we have, is that it's not a mechanistic machine driven vision of a future city. It's what's the smallest unit that could incorporate district scale solutions like community solar, energy storage, community water systems, community scale composting. All that stuff operates much more efficiently at that scale of 1,000 to 10,000 people. We have this validated by world class engineering teams. So if that's the smallest unit of city building, that's really what we're trying to advocate for and develop ourselves and help other people do, is create the foundational pieces for eco cities of the future.
And I will say too, it's an amazing concept because everything you're saying, like, absolutely true. And as a permaculture design certified permaculture designer myself, I've moved more out of the soil based, plant based permaculture, and now I do a lot of programs around social permaculture because a lot of times people just look at, even in sustainability or regenerative work, they look at the soil, they look at a solar panel, they look at the technology, but sometimes they don't look how the whole organism interacts with each other. Like in a permaculture garden, certain plants create shade, certain plants create windbreaks, certain plants nourish the soil, certain plants uptake toxins, and especially when we look at the human element of how these all kind of symbiotically and synergistically work together. So again, amazing, amazing.
Yeah, you're using the buzzwords we love: symbiotic, synergistic. So regenerative, to sort of bring it back full circle, those if those elements are absent, then you're not going to end up with a regenerative situation, right? It's regeneration requires holistic system level thinking to, well, I guess what the way I've really taken to talking about it is creating the conditions for humans and ecosystems to thrive. It's not our job to create the humans or create the ecosystems. Nature does that. Nature is this magic force that nobody's explained yet how it works or why it is. And we all have our theories and spiritual beliefs around that stuff. But that thing works. We just have to create the conditions for it to happen and thrive. That's sort of where, and I would like to imagine that that's somewhat of a rare point of view in real estate development. I would like it to be pervasive and global.
Well, I will say too, it's also a very interesting time. I have several properties in Northern California in the Grass Valley, Lake Tahoe area, and even doing things like natural building and permaculture, the level of constraints by the ordinances and compliances in California really has completely bootstrapped a lot of people who want to implement these solutions. And as we're seeing now with the fire, in Los Angeles. Of course, I live close to Chico. We had the Paradise Fire, and I was connected with also with Matt Trum, who did the rest camp restoration, and again, brilliant solutionary. So now again, I start getting excited when all the people I know and the work they're doing, and we're in a time where we really have to deploy and accelerate these regenerative changes because things are collapsing pretty quickly. But what's interesting is through because I also used to be an investigative journalist. I'm watching now what's happening with Governor Newsom in California. So many businesses leaving, so many people leaving, the inability for clean and green development, and of course now he has his LA 2.0 model, which is for a smart city. So there's all these factors that are working, but nonetheless, I do see a time very clearly and very soon where a lot of these um, building codes and different things are going to have to shift and innovate to be able to embrace the challenges that we're having right now and really move forward into a more sustainable and regenerative society. So, and again, you're kind of like right at ground zero right now of a lot of these things that are happening and moving, and that's why you know I've committed to doing a monthly regenerative roundtable in Los Angeles all the way up to October. And then in October, the 2nd through 5th, we're going to kind of unleash our Earthstock Summit and Festival, which will be bringing together luminaries and solutionaries like yourself to again move the big picture forward. So more deployment, more solutions, a little less fairy dust, a little less just talking to move things forward. So definitely keep those dates open. But yeah, it's amazing because it's necessity is the mother of invention, and the fact that you're there and you're doing this work. And I mean, I can already think of several projects I know Alan and I are connected to that are like, so very exciting. I mean, very challenging times, but also very exciting right now. So, in the few moments that we have left, uh, what else would you like to share? So, I mean, this isn't an idea. You have your website, you have your team of people, and you're moving now into actually initiating some projects. Are you doing a project right now?
We're still in the site discovery and acquisition phase. We are looking at sites near Sacramento and sites in Southern Oregon. And I just got back from a trip to Mexico for a regenerative real estate roundtable, kind of like you're discussing, with some powerful people who are looking at opportunities in Baja to begin what will probably be a strong development future, and making sure that it's regenerative instead of something else. And so what that makes us do is look globally at what else is happening around the world. So I think it's important for people when we start to feel stuck here with our CEQA, which is meant to be a good foundational protection device, has turned into a tool for litigation and stopping development. Um, there are other places around the world who are leapfrogging us and doing sustainable development at scale. We need to bring those examples back here to our community members and our municipalities and government representatives, and help them help us move this forward.
Well,
We
well,
we hit walls here that make us want to go elsewhere to do what we're doing. But I'm a third generation Angelino. My house that I grew up in the Santa Monica Mountains burned down in 2018. I lived in Santa Cruz after that, and I sold my house because I saw the fire coming there. And all of my neighbors lost their homes there also. So I'm really feeling the urgency for us to shift and do it differently. And interestingly, right now we're really struggling against our own need to protect ourselves to the point where we've protected ourselves into a corner. So there's an interesting book that I just read by Ezra Klein and his writing partner. I can't remember their name, unfortunately, but it's called Abundance. And it's like a bookend for me because 10 years ago, I kind of started this Now City journey by reading Abundance by Peter Diamandis. he's a very um, he's a futurist, a forward thinker, has a brilliant, bright vision of the future. It's technology driven. Some people have issues with that, that it has that core instead of humanity, but I don't see it that way. This new book has the same name. Abundance by Peter Diamandis was 10 years ago. This is Abundance, and it's about why can't we do it? Why haven't we been able to? We have the tools. We actually understand how to create these communities of the future, what's getting in our way, and it's politics and political systems and thinking that are, clearly at odds with each other. Both sides of our political coins are getting in the way of us solving this problem. I think it'll benefit us to look globally at what's working, how and why it's working, where it's working elsewhere, how we can find models of development and bring them home and implement them. By 2050, we should have millions of new homes that are built regeneratively in harmony with nature, that are healthy for people. Right now, we're not on course to do that. So we really have to dig deep and think new thoughts and, you know, try stuff, look to the models that exist elsewhere and try to bring it here and get people to say yes.
Well, a lot of that too, I think, is the building and development lobby is so strong. I mean, they just want to build, 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 profit, profit, profit. And I know a lot of businesses are about the bottom line, but I won't get into that because as a journalist in California, I have, I did a thing called the Sacramento River Watershed Project, which is about the proposed Delta Tunnel and 1,000 miles of waterways in the Bay Area. And also, we share that I did live in Santa Cruz for many years. I worked at University of Cal Santa Cruz and lived in Santa Monica many moons ago. And my daughter used to manage what was WeWork. Um, but I think a big part of it is, and there's so many nodes of connection. We are working with some large communities in Mexico right now. We have a Build Back Green Mexico, and we've been working for a couple of years to build up bridges between indigenous communities, indigenous land stewards, and small pueblos and areas that are very eager to move forward. And as you know, the biggest linchpin is no lack of great ideas. The key is always funding. And even here in my project in Colorado, I'm very optimistic. I've actually been called apocalyptimistic. Um, but it's challenging sometimes to get the investment in regenerative land development and brick and mortar, where it seems more kind of sexy and appealing for people who want to invest in a technology with a 200% or more ROI. But again, we're seeing so many things happen in real time that the general attitude is definitely starting to change. So we'll take just another quick minute. I don't like to make these too long because we live in a busy world with certain attention spans. But just before we finish, any last words of wisdom? And then hopefully after the call, send me a message and I'd love to maybe, meet with you in Santa Monica area because there's some really exciting things happening in real time, even as we speak right now. So, yeah, with that, I'll just, give it back to you for some final words of wisdom and inspiration here on Solutionaries.
That's a tall order, but I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you, Michael, and your audience. And I guess the inspiration for me is that no matter how heavy or dark the macro situation seems to be, I think you kind of touched on it when you said you might need a little collapse in order for things to then blossom. And I that's where I draw my hope, is that, again, looking to nature and natural systems, we go through winter every year, and a lot of plants sort of die off or go into hibernation at one level or another. Anytime we hit a big bump in the road, it is like a reset. I think we're going through that right now. And it's our job as solutionaries. I think that's a great word. I'm happy to be considered in that group of people who are thinking positively about the future. um, we should take hope and build the solutions that we want to see in the future, and don't give up. Just make sure that that seed gets planted and that we create those conditions for the future we want to live in now.
Absolutely. And you might have heard the word before, but we like to say we're having a regenaissance. It's a
Love it.
regenerative renaissance. And so really appreciate your time, Eric, and what you're doing with Now City. Very inspiring because it's going to take big solutions to tackle big problems, regardless of those who tend to want to live much more rurally, immersed in nature, and that's we see that happening a lot with the eco village movement all around the world. And I look forward to having some time just to chat about some potential projects. And you have been kind of a missing piece. We've met different people, but someone who's taken the initiative to actually bring together a team of people that are already vetted that can do this type of work. And of course, I just want to acknowledge. I just watched again a couple of days ago. Um, Kiss the Ground, and of course the amazing work he's doing, and of course Cafe Gratitude and that whole community of people working a lot with health of soil and health of the biome, and health of our ecosystem. So I really appreciate your time, and yeah, have a great day. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in to another episode of Solutionaries here on Regenerative Media TV. Also, you do know we put out a quarterly magazine now that goes out to over 50,000 people called Regeneration World Magazine. We actually just put out our spring issue with about 180 pages. I want to encourage you, Eric, if you'd like to contribute at some point and put a article in about your work and just keep people informed, because I think to inspire and educate people, it's an endless task. And education and outreach and social media is important, but what's more important is that we're finding each other to kind of build our coalitions and alliances to get the work done that needs to get done, at the same time educating the general public. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you everyone for joining us on another episode of Solutionaries here.